tonight on First at 9, this Thursday, the 13th of June 2024. Unlocked. Second review of Sri Lanka's fund facility program approved by the IMF, unlocking the third EFF tranche of over $330 million. Privatization. The privatization of Sri Lankan Airlines as part of the IMF program clarifies the CEO of Sri Lanka's national carrier. Do better. Sri Lanka can do better in the debt restructuring process. More benefits could have been obtained from the IMF if both the government and opposition joined hands, stresses former diplomat.
We have to have more exchanges with other countries that are in our situation and work towards what I would call a global trade union of debtor countries.
Unemployment. Sri Lanka plans to reduce unemployment by 5% within the next 2 to 3 years, says President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
මගේ අවධානය යොමු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කොහොමද ඔබට අනාගතයක් ලබා දෙන්නේ.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us tonight on First at 9 with the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Taking centre stage is the IMF approval of Sri Lanka's second review, and international affairs. We have Israeli forces advancing deeper into Rafah as diplomacy falters, and the G7 countries approve a $50 billion deal to support Ukraine. We start off with your stories here at home.
The second review of the Extended Fund Facility Program that was approved for Sri Lanka by the International Monetary Fund last year commenced in Colombo on the 7th of March to assess whether the program is on track or needs to be adjusted in light of new developments. 2 weeks later, on the 21st of March, the IMF staff team and the authorities reached staff-level agreement on economic policies to conclude the second review of the IMF.
The International Monetary Fund approved the second review of its extended fund facility for Sri Lanka, thereby unlocking the third tranche of about $336 million. According to the global lender, it has so far discussed or disbursed around $1 billion to Sri Lanka under the Extended Fund Facility Program. The EFF-supported program, which was approved for Sri Lanka in March last year, aims to restore Sri Lanka's macroeconomic stability, debt sustainability, mitigate the economic impact on the poor and vulnerable, rebuild external buffers, safeguard financial sector stability, and strengthen governance and growth potential. Addressing a media briefing today, the State Minister of Finance, Shehan Semasinghe, who commented on the restructuring of international sovereign bonds, expressed confidence in reaching a consensus with the bondholders by the end of this month.
The second review of the Extended Fund Facility Program that was approved for Sri Lanka by the International Monetary Fund last year commenced in Colombo on the 7th of March to assess whether the program is on track or needs to be adjusted in light of new developments. 2 weeks later, on the 21st of March, the IMF staff team and the authorities reached staff-level agreement on economic policies to conclude the second review of the IMF EFF. Last evening, Sri Lanka's second review was taken up for consideration before the Executive Board of the IMF. Following their consideration, the Executive Board announced that they had completed the second review, thereby unlocking the third tranche of the program amounting to around $336 million. With that amount, the total IMF financial support disbursed to Sri Lanka now stands at around $1 billion. In a statement following the approval of the third tranche, the IMF stated that the recovery remains gradual and the medium-term growth potential hinges on appropriate policy settings. The IMF stated that growth is projected to recover moderately in 2024 to 2025, given constrained bank credit and fiscal consolidation, while facing uncertainties around debt restructuring and policy direction following the elections. Deputy Managing Director and Acting Chair of the IMF, Kenji Okumura, is of the view that Sri Lanka's performance under its fund-supported program remains strong, and added that all quantitative targets were met except for the marginal shortfall of the indicative target on social spending. Okumura stated that despite the positive developments, the economy is still vulnerable and the path to debt sustainability remains knife-edged. The IMF Deputy Managing Director noted that important vulnerabilities associated with the ongoing debt restructuring, revenue mobilization, reserve accumulation and banks' ability to support the recovery continue to cloud the outlook, and added that strong reform efforts, adequate safeguards and contingency planning will help mitigate these risks. Further, Kenji Okamura highlighted that to restore fiscal sustainability, sustain revenue mobilization efforts, promptly finalizing the debt restructuring in line with program targets and protecting social and capital spending remain critical. He added that advancing public financial management will help enhance fiscal discipline and that the debt management framework needed strengthening. The IMF Deputy Managing Director also noted that monetary policy should continue prioritizing price stability, supported by a sustained commitment to refrain from monetary financing and safeguard central bank independence. He stated that continued exchange rate flexibility and gradually phasing out the balance of payments measures remain critical to rebuilding external buffers and facilitating external rebalancing. He also added that restoring bank capital adequacy and strengthening governance and oversight of state-owned banks are top priorities to revive credit growth and support economic recovery. Addressing a media briefing this morning, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinge expressed confidence in reaching agreements with bondholders.
We are very hopeful. Likewise, we have come into agreement in principle with the bilateral creditors. We will be able to decide soon on signing the MOUs. It is being highlighted by the IMF also, but at the same time, the IMF has recognized the progress made in debt restructuring discussions. So the next step would be the ISP holders, which I have always told that we are very confident that we will be able to reach an agreement in principle with our bondholders and to ensure that we have a swift completion of the entire debt restructuring process.
Minister, when you say soon, is there like a timeline? Can you give us within the month, next week? What is it?
I think it is not fair if I tell a specific date, but there is a time frame. We are very confident that we should be able to reach consensus by the end of the month. So that is our target. That is a timeline that we are working on. And we are confident with the support which is extended by our creditors, we should be able to reach our targets.
Less sugar, same great taste. From Melbourne.
CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines Richard Natal says that the national carrier is being restructured as part of the International Monetary Fund program in Sri Lanka. Natal said that one of the steps taken under the initiative of privatizing the airline is the government's efforts in helping with the balance sheet, which will be completed in a month or two. Natal also noted that the airline is looking for an investor and 3 candidates have been finalized and the government is in talks with them. The Sri Lankan CEO went on to clarify that no Indian company has shown interest in investing in the national carrier, but one of the consortiums has Indian representation. Commenting on the plans to expand the fleet of Sri Lankan Airlines, Natal said they are planning to expand the current fleet of 21 by 25 within another year.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Former Sri Lankan permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Dr. Derana Jayathilaka believes Sri Lanka could have struck a better deal with the International Monetary Fund if the island nation went to the international lenders as a bipartite team consistent of both government and opposition parties. While joining our current affairs program at Hyde Park earlier today, Dr. Jayathilaka said that the government is not handling the external debt restructuring process in the best way possible. He further said Sri Lanka was managed in such a way that is now unable to be completely immune to external pressure when taking international policy decisions. How do you analyze the situation for the country going forward?
Well, we are in an unprecedentedly deep economic crisis. At the heart of that is the debt crisis. But within that heart, there is a node. The most intractable part of the debt crisis is that of the debt to the private creditors, the private money market. The rest of it is known. I'm not convinced that Sri Lanka at the moment is handling its debt restructuring negotiations as well as it mind. I think we can do a lot better. That doesn't mean that we should walk out for dealing. But I think we can negotiate in a tougher way, less yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, which is what I think is happening now. Because the way that we are doing things, we are piling up enormous poverty, inequality of a sort that we've never had before. And all these figures come from the Department of Census and Statistics, the UNDP, the UNICEF, the World Bank itself. Terrible, terrible figures of a socioeconomic crisis. Now we have to do something about the way we are handling our macroeconomy, because otherwise you're going to have a social explosion. The portal that we have, that is this election, will give us a chance of making a fresh but a wise start.
Do you think Sri Lanka is pressured into a corner where we have to listen to certain countries to take decisions internally?
We have mismanaged ourselves so badly that we can't just say no without terrible consequence. But that doesn't mean that we have to say yes to everything. And I'm afraid we've been saying yes to everything. We could do a lot better by having an administration that is popularly elected, which we don't, because then you'd have the people with you in your negotiations. By the nature of things, the way things happen, we have a leader whom we have not elected. You can't really negotiate successfully if the people don't back you, if they haven't elected you. So we've got to change that. Should be somebody who has got the legitimacy of a popular mandate. And that's the kind of leader who can negotiate successfully with the outside world. I support a generational shift away from the generations that have taken us into this very worst crisis of a sort I have never experienced in all my life in Sri Lanka. Secondly, we need Sri Lanka's best brains brought together to help us handle this. And I don't think anybody has made that effort. Thirdly, we have to have more exchanges with other countries that are in our situation and work towards what I would call a global trade union of debtor countries. And then we can adopt collective positions. You can enhance your bargaining power vis-a-vis the creditors. Now, had we gone in as a bipartisan team, government and opposition, which would have meant that there had to have been something that government and opposition agreed upon, rather than calling on opposition parties to support the government's position, then we would have had a stronger hand in our talks with IMF.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says it is the ordinary people of the country who are benefiting from the program that the government has embarked on with the International Monetary Fund. Delivering the keynote address at the SAARC Finance Governors meeting, President Wickremesinghe reiterated that Sri Lanka's plans to convert its economy to an export-oriented model, that it's capable of achieving higher levels of economic growth.
The inaugural session of the 45th SAARC Finance Governors Meeting and Symposium was held in Colombo today.
The collective efforts of SAARC member countries during the crisis underscore the importance of regional cooperation and solidarity in times of need. SAARC Finance Facility, extended to Sri Lanka during the difficult time, was a great example of such collective efforts, actually led by Reserve Bank of India. Their contributions were instrumental in helping Sri Lanka manage and mitigate the impact of its economic challenges. As we navigate the complexities of central banking and multifaceted global economic challenges, journey ahead requires adaptive and flexible policy frameworks, robust capacity building, and a commitment to excellence in central banking. Through platforms like SAARC Finance, we can share knowledge, best practices, and work together on joint initiatives that benefit all member countries. Let us continue to strengthen our cooperation, deepen our economic ties, and support each other in achieving a prosperous and stable region. Together we can overcome the challenges before us and pave the way for a brighter future for all of our nations.
For Sri Lanka to attain growth, we have to do an economic transformation from our import-based economy to export-driven economy. The result is that decided that we will bring a new law called the Economic Transformation Law. We have fallen, we have failed, there is no need to be shy about what you are doing, do it and be done with it. So there is nothing to be frightened of it. So I wanted to ensure that the initial beneficiaries of the measures we have taken with the IMF are the ordinary people of Sri Lanka. They are the ones who suffered most. They are the ones who lost their jobs. They are the ones who have to mortgage their properties. They are the ones who have to sell their land. So to ensure that, I've said that we should ensure the money goes to the bottom, to down. In addition to this, I think stabilizing the rupee and bringing the interest rates down has been one benefit. Secondly, with the help of the World Bank, we have increased the payment of social welfare payments threefold. And from 1.8 million families, it will go up to 2.4 million families. That's at the very, very bottom.
Meanwhile, President Wickremesinghe revealed that the government plans to reduce unemployment in Sri Lanka by 5% within the next 2 to 3 years. He further went on to state that the Economic Transformation Bill will aid the process by eliminating unemployment and generating new sources of income. Addressing a gathering at the Presidential Secretariat, the head of state added that achieving this target is crucial in preserving Sri Lanka's human capital.
Members of the National Youth Corps met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday. During the meeting, President Wickremesinghe was presented with a souvenir by NYC Director Brigadier Sujiva Ratnayaka.
What is the hope of everyone that is present here? It is a future, a job and a source of income. As a government, we are focused on how to provide you with a future. Not everyone has jobs and salaries that satisfy them. First, we must eliminate unemployment and generate sources of income. For this purpose, we have put forward the Economic Transformation Bill. As such, we are set to reduce unemployment in Sri Lanka by 5% within the next 2 or 3 years. More than that, people's salaries must be increased. Through this, we must develop Sri Lanka by 2035 and reach an even better point in development by 2048. We must build this country. We have fallen behind in this race. Now is the time to pick up the fallen baton and run forward whether we like it or not. If we compete well in 2024, we will be able to get in front. If not, what will happen? Everyone will try to leave Sri Lanka in search of jobs.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa says that he will expand the fundamental rights chapter of the Constitution by incorporating education, health, economic, cultural and social rights. Addressing an event in Jaffna, the opposition leader said that an era that safeguards the rights of the people will be established under his presidency.
The 88th iteration of the Sakvala program was held at Victoria College in Cholipuram under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
The fundamental rights included in the Constitution mostly consist of civil and political rights. It does not include economic, social, cultural, religious, educational or health rights. By claiming a public mandate, I will establish an era that protects the rights of the 22 million people in this country by including education, health, economic, civic, cultural and social rights in the fundamental rights chapter. I would like to invite the political fraudsters and those who hate me to compete with me in terms of the service rendered to the citizens.
Executive Committee member of Sarva Jana Balaya MP Channa Jayasumana says that the new political movement will hold its first public rally on the 18th of June in Nugegoda. He mentioned this at the Sarva Jana Balaya media briefing held in Colombo today.
සර්වජන බලයේ පළමු මහජන රැළිය එළඹෙන අඟහරුවාදා දවසේ ඒ කියන්නේ ජූනි මාසේ 18 වෙනිදා සවස 2:30ට නුගේගොඩ නගරයේදී පැවැත්වෙනවා. එදා යහපාලන ආණ්ඩුව බලයට ආවට පස්සේ
When the government of good governance came into power in 2015, we launched a series of measures against them and all of them began from Nugegoda. That journey saw the defeat of the government of good governance.
අපි තව සති දෙකක් ඇතුළත අපේ වැඩපිළිවෙල ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඡන්ද ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරනකම් ඉන්න බලාපොරොත්තුවක් නැහැ.
නැවත වතාවක් 13 වෙනි සංශෝධනය බලාත්මක
We condemn the attempts taken to create divisions among our people under the guise of implementing the 13th Amendment. All of you were disappointed because there was no alternative. However, Sarva Jana Balaya will be that alternative. We expect to meet all of you in Nugegoda on the 18th of June.
ඔබ හමු වීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
Welcome back. We take you to your business news. Sri Lanka has sold 295 billion rupees in 2027, 2029 and 2031 bonds at the auction today. The debt office sold and offered 60 billion rupees of 15th October 2027 maturity at an average yield of 10.30%. All offered 125 billion rupees of 15th September 2029 maturity bonds were sold at 11%. All 110 billion rupees offered of the first December 2031 maturing bonds were sold at 12%. And the Colombo Bourse closed in negative territory as a result of price losses in counters such as Sampath Bank, National Development Bank and Haley's, while turnover crossed 1.8 billion rupees. The all-share price index closed 0.25% lower to settle at 12,359. Trading volume on the ASPI reduced to 57.3 million from 65.8 million shares in the previous session. High net worth and institutional investor participation were noted in Commercial Bank, Hat National Bank and John Keel's Holdings. The S&P SL20 meanwhile edged down 0.44% to end at 3,670. The equity market turnover increased to 1.83 billion rupees from 1.65 billion in the last session. The banking sector was the top contributor to turnover, while the sector index lost 0.5%. Net foreign outflow was recorded at 82 million rupees. And the Sri Lankan rupee closed flat today against the previous trading session. Let's take a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day.
The 4A's advertising festival, powered by Unilever Sri Lanka and globally connected by Sri Lankan Airlines, was held in Colombo recently. The festival provided a platform for groundbreaking ideas and set a new benchmark for creative training in Sri Lanka's advertising industry. Creative and advertising leaders took the stage, offering insightful and introspective talks and thought-provoking panel discussions on bolstering creativity, the impact of technology and more. Meanwhile, the board of directors of SoftLogic Life Insurance plc announced a share repurchase program aimed at enhancing capital management and optimizing shareholder value. The decision made on the 11th of June 2024 will offer the company to purchase over 58 million shares at 102 rupees and 40 cents per share, representing a total value of up to 6 billion rupees. Ashok Garments Private Limited, a manufacturer and exporter of superior industrial uniforms, has been recognized with the BWIO Excellence Award in the garment or textile industry under the large to platinum category at the Business World International Awards 2023. Established in 1987, Ashok Garments has been delivering industrial apparel to a diverse clientele across Canada, the United States, the Middle East, Italy and the United Kingdom.
And that's all from us here tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. I'm Indivari Amuatha. Good night.